100th episode.
Damn.
Yeah, we're doing it. Yesterday, we put one out on Sunday. We went down to San Diego and you led a yoga session for jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, that was really fun and really unexpected. We didn't know if we just brought the mics and kind of just set up, and it ended up being a cool little day. And shout out to the whole Jiu-Jitsu in the Park group family for allowing me to come down there and be a part of that third year running. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Jake was out there having a good time. Got a cool photo op.
Everyone
was doing yoga. Everyone loved it. Got some cool new followers. So it was all in all a great day.
I think it was awesome. And seeing that many people just being like, yeah, I'll go and try it. Like, even lots of them hadn't ever done it before, but they still did it. So that was really cool.
What was cool, sorry to interrupt, had a few guys come up to me, and they didn't hop in initially. And they hopped in like around midway, and they came up to me afterwards and said, yeah, man, I thought you were just going to do like regular yoga and stretching, so I didn't bother. But then I saw what you were doing, and it looked pretty cool. So that was cool. It was cool to know that, I could switch it up a little bit and guys are interested. Guys, more like
me. And I was thinking, too, there are probably also a lot more military guys down there. Because in the community, there's already a lot. But then San Diego, we're at the
we were right
Naval
near,
Training Center Park.
We were right near MCRD as well, where all the Marines train. I graduated from there. Angel Gonzalez, who was on our podcast, graduated from there. So yeah, it's definitely a high volume of military people out there.
Yeah, that's why I finally wanted to do this. We've had a couple episodes about the military, but when I went to the LA Times Festival of Books, I ran into this guy, Anthony Stewart, came up to me. We just started a discussion about the military and his organization, and the more he told me, the more interested I was in it. So I had him. He brought over William Craig Reed. He's a New York Times bestselling author. We filmed a little interview. I want you to hear that and see what they're about, because I know there are a lot of different organizations out there. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you hear things you don't want to, like how much isn't going to the troops, how much isn't going to the vets or whatever.
That's a big one.
But with these guys, it's pretty awesome. So I'm just you guys listen to his clip. We'll play William Craig Reed's first, and then we'll talk a little bit, and then I'll show you Anthony Stewart's.
Nice.
Awesome. So, thank you for joining us. What is your name? And tell me a little bit about yourself, what you've been through and what you're doing now.
Sure. William Craig Reed, New York Times best-selling author, but I'm also one of the founders and directors for Us4Warriors Foundation. Us4Warriors is an organization for veterans, different than most others because we help all veterans, not just a small segment, number one. Number two, none of the directors are paid. And we also are very frugal, so we don't spend a lot of money. But I think most important, number three, instead of just giving veterans something, feeding them a fish for a day, what we actually do is empower them to be leaders of their own lives and help them to be able to learn how to fish and feed themselves for life. We have five-star programs, veteran-owned benefits programs. We have businesses, veteran-owned businesses, as well as benefit programs for veterans. But we also have scholarships for those who've lost parents. We have a number of programs that actually empower veterans to be able to learn how to adopt new skills. We partner with Reboot and some other organizations that help with the transition. We also just do things like helping veterans move, older veterans move. We help wounded veterans, for example, two in particular, who are trying to get to the Special Olympics. We help them get there. Those are the kinds of things we do.
That's awesome. Do you guys ever have, do you see a lot of vets that aren't taking advantage of benefits that they should be getting? And do you maybe help them, or at least encourage people to apply for those benefits?
Absolutely. One of our sponsors is Military Home Loans, but organizations like that can help these veterans understand what the VA loan is all about. There are a lot of things I didn't even know, and they actually help with this. So those are part of the programs that we offer. All of these transition programs. How do you use your VA benefits? How do you integrate into the civilian community? There's little things like terminology that are a little bit different than what you were used to back when you were serving, and so on. So it's a number of these programs that can really help veterans to become leaders in their communities and in organizations that they might get employed with. Well, it's one of the things I mentioned earlier, that we don't just target one segment. While that segment may be in need, such as a wounded warrior, how do you define wounded? right? Wounded can span a lot more than what we might think. 22 veterans per day take their own lives. 100,000 per year are in distress. Many of them become homeless. Yes, we want to help those, but not just like I said earlier, give them a fish and feed them for the day. We want to empower them to get out of that situation and get motivated, excited about their own lives. It's difficult for a lot of them coming back, trying to transition. They can't get jobs. Alcohol and drug-related issues. There's all kinds of reasons why. We want to understand what those are and not just put a Band-Aid on it, but find ways to help them solve these issues and become more productive leaders in their community. So I mentioned earlier, we have a book that we're launching. It's called The 7 Principles of Neuron Leadership. And we've got some amazing interviews in here from former head of NASA, former Deputy Secretary of the Defense, 2 Secretaries of the Navy, the Executive Officer of the Coast Guard, the first female to head up the 3rd Fleet, lots of civilian CEOs, the Girl Scout CEO, just tons of phenomenal leaders. And all proceeds will benefit our foundation, the Us4Warriors Foundation. It's being launched on a crowdfunding site called Generosity. And you can find out about this and our organization at my website, Craig Reed, WCRAIG, Reed, REED, WCraigReed.com. And look for that. 7 Principles of Neuron Leadership. Please help us out because this will really help veterans a lot.
So, I mean, a lot of the things he said made a lot of sense to me. What were you thinking when you listened to it?
I like it. I like the fact that, first of all, a lot of the money goes to the actual vets. That's a big one. You've been hearing a lot about certain organizations. I'm not going to mention names because I don't have full details on them, but you hear about certain organizations where, I mean, it's pitiful.
As far as like
salaries, guys getting flown out here and there, but the actual vets only get this and that. And, being a serviceman and being in Iraq and seeing it firsthand, like they imported sand to the desert for a beach volleyball court.
Totally.
And you're going to ask me, how do I know it was imported? Well, because I know what sand looks like out there. I know the color, the taste, the smell. Yeah. And that's some fresh Top Gun volleyball sand, you know what I mean? And that slapped me in the face out there. Because I can deal with all the shit that was, I understood all the shit that was going on out there. Mm-hmm. But when we came back to this main base to refuel and I saw that, I think it sent me into a weird little spiral. Like, coming back to this base to refuel and there's fresh, for some reason I just noticed the sand. Mm-hmm. I was driving in my Humvee, I was on the turret gun, and it just looked like Santa Monica beach sand. Yeah. I'm like, wow. So I may be wrong. Maybe they ground it up and made it look pretty. I could be completely wrong, but something about the sand, and I know how much money is being exported and for aid, and I'm not going to get too much into it, but I'm glad that the money goes to the vets. Mm-hmm. I'm really happy about that. And another big thing that William mentioned was the VA benefits. Mm-hmm. Like, a lot of guys don't know about it because it's something that's not talked about. There's so much aid out there. I'm currently, if it wasn't for the aid I was receiving, it'd be hard for me to, do a lot of things I'm doing right now. And, he mentioned that guys are, homeless and it's a hard time finding a job, but another thing is once we find a job, a lot of people don't mention this, it's super stressful working with civilians. Oh, yeah. 'Cause we come from, we're not just trying to get off at this time. There is no getting off. If we don't finish the job, there's no getting off of work. Mm-hmm. There's no 5 o'clock you punch out. And my experience coming back, first going to school and having a few jobs here and there, working with civilians is very hard. It's very difficult because the mindset's totally different. They're worried about, and not to blame them. You got to worry about your kids. You got to go home and cook dinner. You got to, you're not worrying about doing the best job you can do, but any serviceman in any position he's in, he's going to do the best job he can do because he's just wired that way. Right. So that's another way for Marines, I say Marines because I'm biased, I'm sorry, servicemen, to kind of like, it's another little difficult coping mechanism that we have to develop, how to work with other people that aren't servicemen and service people. So, that's a big issue, I think, and I'm glad they're helping guys re-assimilate into the working environment, because that could be a really stressful thing. It was stressful for me. That's why I'm not in the working environment. That's why I'm here talking with you and doing this. I had how do you define wounded?
Yeah.
And I think that's huge.
Yeah.
Like, you look at me, I look awesome, I look fine. You know, you look at Tim Kennedy, look at that stud. You know, all these guys, but just how do you define it, and who are you to define it anyway? Yeah. Who is a doctor to define it? I mean, the only person that can define it is a panel of doctors that actually been there and experienced it and were in the service. So that's a big thing for people to remember. A wounded warrior isn't just someone who lost a limb or you know, what have you. It's a lot of traumatic brain injuries from concussion blows due to IEDs, landmine. A lot of you know, basic boot camp.
Right.
You know, I experienced some guys try to hang themselves in boot camp or jump out of windows in boot camp, and just so they can get out. And that's just boot camp. You know, so everyone handles things differently, and you never know looking at a person in general. You definitely never know looking at a serviceman. You don't know what you're handling. You might be shaking the hand of a man who's, I'm not sure in your eyes, committed some you know, some horrible crimes, but you call him a hero, and you know he'll shake it back and he'll smile at you, but in his heart you don't know what's going on.
Right.
So that's a big thing. You know, he nailed it. How do you define it? It's hard to define.
Something you said the other day about, I forget who the individual was, but you were saying how you know, he hadn't seen battle, but he was I don't know if he was a doctor or a nurse, but he was seeing all these dead bodies all the time, and like the experience.
He was an X-ray tech. Yeah, an X-ray tech. Just talking with him, you know, you would think he had a great career. He spent 7 years in a hospital, you know, never touched the battlefield, but, you know, he would tell me about, you know, babies that servicemen would beat to death.
Wow.
You know, and he has to scan them. You know, dead bodies he has to scan, limbs torn, blown apart, in training that he has to scan. So if you think about his 7 years, he saw way more. You know, it's just a lot. It's a lot to handle. And he was just in the hospital, an X-ray tech. You would never think, you know. And now he's an X-ray tech in a civilian hospital, and you know, it's different. It's different. Yeah, it's different.
You come back. You know, lots of guys come back from military service better. Like, it improves them. There's all these positive things, so it's not all negative. But there can be an incredible amount of, let's call it stress, whatever it is, psychological, emotional, physical, that causes damage. And then guys get out, and it's like, how do you make that transition? How do you go from that to this?
And that's the obvious extreme point. Everyone wants to look at combat vets, and everyone wants to focus on guys in combat, and you know, but there's so many other positions in the military that make it like admin, like logistical work, getting Marines and servicemen food and water, like that's essential. Like if you don't do your job and that plane flies north and it should have went south, that whole squad's not going to have water or food for a week or hours, and you're killing them. You're basically killing them because they got to fight. So small things like that every, like he said, you know, an employer might ask you, how do you deal with pressure or stress? So even if you're sitting there pushing papers, making sure documents go through so guys can get paid so that they feed their family, you gotta, every morning you gotta be there. So yeah, it just, you know, it's rough.
So here is the clip of Anthony Stewart.
Well, my name is Tony Stewart, Anthony Stewart. A lot of people see me on the web at either Anthony Stewart or Tony Stewart because of that NASCAR guy. You know how it goes with the name and stuff. I'm the older one, so there. Anyway, for me, it's a calling. I really feel it. It's a calling. I did 20 years in submarines myself, but I had always been planning for my life after service to continue to give service. So for me, it's just been a calling. I think that the guy upstairs had picked me for this in order to do this and brought the people together in our group to do some amazing things and help folks out. I did 20 years in submarines. I work for the Navy now. I work for, I'm a government service employee, director of administration with the Navy SEALs. Can't tell you anything about that, but that's what I do in my day job. And then after my day job is over, whistle blows, and I'm on the road helping out veterans.
Now, could you see that yoga, grappling, any kind of physical activity would be beneficial for active duty and veterans?
Well, that's an easy no-brainer right there, because I think that anything physical is going to help us out a lot. A lot of the deterioration that we have during our service time comes from the physical abuse we place on our bodies. It's also the abuse we place on ourselves mentally. A lot of times it's not others placing it upon us, it's that which we place upon ourselves. So any rigorous training or whatsoever, you know, we love it when we're there, when we're in it, and get the camaraderie going and doing things with our brothers and sisters in the service. Those are the moments we cherish when we're doing physical activities. Well, it can extend beyond. If you get those moments of silence in your meditation, your yoga, and different ways to flex and do that, it's going to make you live a longer life. It's going to also help you calm those nerves that you have, especially guys with PTSD and TBI. I've got friends that do yoga, and I've got friends that had been through VA training, and VA does the best that they can do. We love VA. They try. There's some fantastic people there. They're always under fire, but they take it and they continue to try to do the best that they can. But at the same time, I've got friends that have been through particular treatments, and it just didn't work for them. So when they found yoga, it worked for them. You know, they cleaned themselves, and that was a cleansing that they needed to have. A year or so ago with myself, I started doing some stuff too, but a year ago with myself, I came down with cancer. And some of it, you know, from service, some of the exposures to some things that I had. And, you know, from there, I decided I got to quit all these things. And I did. Thanks to my Savior above and some other people that helped me get into some physical regimens, helped me out a tremendous amount to kick alcohol, coffee, cigars, which I loved, you know, and all those different things. And I feel so much better. And I bet you yoga for folks out there can help out a lot.
That's cool. Yeah, I know there's something for everyone, you know, and that's why I was like, because I'm a big into jiu-jitsu right now.
Right.
It used to be MMA, is like, and I see the benefits of everything and just how everything can help. And now, how difficult is it for we were talking earlier with Bill about the suicides per day among veterans, and what could be some of those causes, and how we get that number lower. How hard is it for people to go say that, yeah, you know what, I do need help? Because I think a lot of people,
hard.
Public sees, like, if you ever stepped on a bomb, if you're not missing something, then what's wrong with you? You know, you did a job,
exactly,
and you came back, and you know, you're even a hero, and you get these benefits. Talk about the reality. How is it for people that are coming back, whether they've been overseas, even if they've just gone through, I don't want to say even just, but going through 4 years, going through boot camp. Like, what can that?
Well, no matter what, and I think you and I talked about this before, we kind of hit on it. No matter what service anybody does, you don't leave unscathed. You leave service with something. You are changed. You know, some people are better after they have service. You know, and many are better because they learned how to have discipline and leadership and so forth. But sometimes that abrupt change, when you go from this is your focus 24 hours a day, every day, you're always high op tempo. You don't sleep a lot. I used to tell guys, they wouldn't believe me, that okay, I'm up for 36 hours at a time, and then I get a little bit of sleep, and then I'm back at that 36 hours again, because the job I had was key and important, and nobody else was qualified to do it. So that type of stuff happens. So when you leave that, even the quiet is stressful for people. That quiet, that lack of purpose. I talked to a state senate panel, and I told them when they talked about employment, different things, I said that lack of purpose is very traumatic to people, you know. And when we talk about suicides, folks forget those things that place us in despair. And used to be, figures were out a long time ago, service or no service, the highest rates of suicide came from loss of job.
Really?
And think about it from an aspect of a soldier, sailor, airman, or Marine. That loss of job just happened. And now you may think you got the world roped, but if you got a family and stuff, then you're buried. And you're buried with your own emotions and feelings that you have to go through. And we're taught to suck it up, because when the mission is in front of you, you don't have time for it. And people count on you. So when you've got that going on, then you have to keep moving forward. There's no time. So time comes when you break. And sometimes when you break, it's not easy. I could tell you everything all over the place about Us4Warriors Foundation, what we do. But I think it's just simpler if I just tell everybody about the website and tell them to go there, because it's very simple. Like this pair of glasses that I wear, I tell everybody in the big forums I go to, etc., that what we do, everything is for the troops, veterans, and their families. And it's like a pair of glasses. When I put these on, the rose-colored glasses, everything going on is for the troops, veterans, and their families, and that's how we see life in Us4Warriors. So we have 5 programs. I'll let people go to www.us4warriors.org and check out the programs that we have. We're taking care of the whole veteran, and we're taking care of the gaps. And if anybody wants to help out in any way, reach out to us. Let us know. We may be based in San Diego, but we have friends all across the country, and we are growing.
And it's not an organization where all the money is going to...
I'm so glad you asked, because that's one of the things about us. We all got day jobs, and we're doing very well at our day jobs, where basically we put money into the foundation, but at the same time we take no money. What we were talking the other day, $200 goes to each board director every year, and we take that $200 and we put it together at the end of the year. And what we did this year is we had half of it went to the scholarship fund, and the other half of it we got airline tickets for a person that really needed the airline tickets to go back home to the Midwest because his father was terminally ill, and he's a veteran and just wanted to go home to be with his father. So that's what we do with our money. We make no money. We're not in this to make money. We're in this to make lives stronger.
So 20 years, he was 20 years on a submarine, and he was talking about the shifts and how many hours straight he would have to be up and then sleep a couple. When you told me that, like, talk about just that kind of stress, especially when you're over there.
Oh man, it's such a blur, but yeah, the hours are astonishing. People don't understand it, and looking back, I don't know how we do it. I don't know how you have a 4-hour rest period. It's just funny. I just remember coming back from convoys, and they'd be like, Johnson, hit the rack. You got 4 hours. Mm-hmm. So I'm expected to shower, take off all my stuff, reload, do all this, and sleep in 4 hours. I don't know. The hour. I don't honestly know how we do it. I'm not sure if it's a combination of the cigarettes and coffee and the whatever and the pure adrenaline. But I think humans are incredible, and when they have to, you can. But the thing about that is that it lingers after, staying up, insomnia, of course, it's just there. Like I still experience it. Like for a while coming back, my sleeping patterns were just all off. And I think to this day, I'm just, still a little off as far as sleeping, but I think other factors have to do with that as well. But yeah, you can definitely rack up some hours. 24 hours, easy. 24 hours go by, it's easy. That's easy. So 36, for sure. That's super easy, super common.
Yeah, he was talking about being passionate. I mean, he is very passionate. I mean, that's why I was talking to him. It's because he wants to help servicemen. He sees the benefit of doing yoga and jiu-jitsu and anything physical like that. I think that's what's cool, and maybe that's your role. Maybe that's saying, hey, because how much has yoga and jiu-jitsu helped you? Like you've talked about it on previous ones, but for guys that are just turning in, for guys that maybe just got out and they need something and they're just like they don't know how to deal with these emotions, I think that's a wonderful place. Like go to a jiu-jitsu academy, go find start doing yoga at home. Like, and what would you tell them?
I would say it's pretty simple. When we're in the service, we have a purpose. You have a purpose. You wake up every day. You got a job to do. Your body gets acclimated to doing that. It understands it's got to wake up and do something. If you just stop that, then that's where things start to get weird. So just how you need a purpose, you need to do something, your body needs something to do. So if you put your body to work, whether it's with yoga, something extreme like jiu-jitsu, or if you like to run, or if you like to just something to get it out, is what I like to say. Get it out and go inward, and just find out what's going on inside. You heard of like runner's stride, or everyone gets that high when they're working out. So yeah, give your body a purpose again. Put yourself on a schedule and stick to it, and it's gonna slowly, gradually, bring you into this crazy thing we call the civilian world.
And for guys, you know what? There was a conversation I had with Tommy Truex, MMA fighter out of Jackson Winks. This was a couple years ago, but he's still in the service. I want to show you his clip.
Okay.
But because I talked to him, because we talked a lot about that and just what he dealt with from being over there, and then how many friends he's lost. So I asked him, I was like, well, what would you do if you were MMA fighter and Iraq vet, First Lieutenant Tommy Truex. And he talks a little bit about the rate of suicide and just how crazy it is. And I just need to press OK so we can watch it. And we may not need to do this, but I think we should talk about that and talk about the pills and how fucking crazy it is.
Blue and yellow, purple pills. Leave that part in. That's a shout out to my boy Eminem.
I have been where you're at. I've gone through the exact same things you have. Please, let's talk about it before we do anything else. I'll talk to you about it. I'm not a therapist. I'm your buddy. We're friends. We've done the same stuff. We've shoot the same dirt. We've shot the same weapons. We've shot at the same people. We've defended the same country. Let's just go hang out, have a fucking lunch, and just go chat about what's bothering you. Don't do anything that you can't undo. You know, that's a permanent solution to an impermanent, a fleeting problem. Those things we can work through. You got to put things in perspective and work towards letting those things go or working through them. You can't just stop. It's not fair to you. It's not fair to your family. So you have so much more to give in this life. Let's go talk about it, and I can help refer you to someone that can really, really go through everything with you and really make a difference in your life, because it's going to get better. Life is good. Life is fun. Life is full of entertaining, joyous events that we can still enjoy, even though we've done bad things. We're remorseful about some of the things that we've done, and that's okay. We can still find joy in all the things that we do.
Right. How important is it to be able to talk with someone? How many people were you able to talk to, like a good talk? Because I feel like that when we talked, I think I interviewed you maybe a year ago. It was after like one of our first yoga sessions. I started talking with you, and it was pretty emotional, and I kind of felt like, I mean, that was difficult for you to even go there and trust me with that. So I don't know. Had you talked to other people about that before? Had you even talked that deep? And how long had that been since you were out?
I got out in 2011.
Okay.
2011. No, not really. You and probably maybe like my coach Randall. Because we're just hanging out, doing our thing, just hanging out. And I think that's the best way to do it. And it's not a knock on the VA system, the psychiatry system, and going and having your journal and write. It's not a knock on any of that. Right. I found for me, just like he said, the easiest way to do it is to go shoot the shit, knock a few back, smoke a joint or two. And it's not like you never dove. Mm-hmm. I don't think you ever dove into anything. But for some reason, we just went there. Mm-hmm. And I think you share some crazy shit. I share some crazy shit. And then we don't feel as crazy at the end of the day. Yeah. But when I go, once again, it's not a knock. This is psychiatrist. When I go sit down with my therapist at the VA, she has a clipboard. She's writing shit down. She's evaluating me the whole time. Mm-hmm. And, asking those questions. How does that make you feel? And where does that come from? So, yeah, I don't know. I think that's the way to do it, yeah.
But that, even with you saying that, what was cool, I got to see that too, was you were telling me all that stuff about the problems you had with the therapist. And I suggested that you tell her, like, you take control. It was like, it's your appointment. You kind of take control of it. And you did. And I think that improved things, right? And I don't know if those talks helped at all, but at least
you're right. And thank you for bringing that up, because you're right. I did have a talk with and she was so sweet, and she understood. And I just told her, look, I'm sorry, but this is not going to work for me. I have a buddy that I do talk with, and if we can just somehow become as close as buddies as we can, it's a professional level. Yeah. And she was super cool. we went out for a little walk around the building, and so you're right. You know, not every therapist is the same. Not every person is the same. So if you can talk to someone and have the courage to talk back to your therapist, or not talk back, reason or explain how, you know, you would like your session to go, I think that was beneficial for me. And the only reason, you know, I haven't been back is just because I've been busy. But maybe I'll be back.
That's cool. But yeah, I think that is important. And I think that's what you're saying with jiu-jitsu. I mean, you're around those kinds of people, and when you start trusting those kinds of people, and you can share. So yeah, and there's I've talked with so many different servicemen that's one reason why they love going and being part of a team again. It's like maybe it's not as intense, maybe it's not the same, but it's pretty damn close. It's a family.
I'm biased, of course, again, but jiu-jitsu, there's something about it where it's gentle enough and crazy enough. Like, you can go hard, and you can get to the brink of death with the person, and he will choke your lights out till the elevator doors start to close, and then it's just you're revived again, and you look at him, and you hug him, and you say, oh, thank you for the roll. Instead of being angry, like, we learned to misplace that energy and put it towards anger, you know, and put it on the gun and squeeze a trigger or drop a bomb. And now that energy is going towards, you know, we still get the physical rush, but at the end we look at the person as admiration. Like, when you tap me out, I'm grateful. I'm like, how'd you do that? Or, you know, if a higher belt gets me, of course I'm like, oh, teach me that, instead of anger towards people. And I know we need a service. Of course I back the military, but they do their job, and their job is to teach you how to do your job. So I think that the reason, especially jiu-jitsu, is different from any other, like, you know, aggressive sport, is that for the most part in jiu-jitsu, like, everyone's pretty friendly. And like you hear it all the time about these top killers, these straining monsters, and even UFC guys, but they're so nice. They're so nice. It's because they've got it out. And I'll be honest with you, man, some of the highest decorated dudes in the service were the nicest guys to the younger Marines. You know, we all looked up to them, and they knew it, and they were so nice, and they spit knowledge at us and say, dude, all this don't mean shit. He's like, all I, you know, I had a guy in particular said, they put all these ribbons on my chest and paraded me around, but dude, I've done some crazy shit, and this is what I get for it. I get a little poke in the chest. And that was big for me to hear, you know, so thank you. You know who you are. But yeah, not in jiu-jitsu, man. And for the most part in jiu-jitsu, the higher level guys, you know, the guys that really get to that peak level are so nice. And I think I respect that more so than any other sport, as far as basketball and all that. You know, I've met some douchey NBA players. I've met, you know, everyone has, you know, and who knows, maybe they just had a bad day, whatever. But for some reason, MMA athletes, UFC guys, jiu-jitsu guys, they're always willing to sit there and sign and talk and show a move and just show their face, you know. And I think that's why I gravitate towards it more, because it's similar to what I saw in the service, where all these guys doing some crazy feats, and they're so admirable, and they carry themselves well. They're just like, oh, no, I'm just like me and you, man. I put my socks on just like you. And, you know, Brian Stan, dude, look at that guy, you know. So yeah.
Awesome. There was one thing. My kids are going to be coming. Got to go to lunch, grab some Thai food. But before we do that, what an awesome job this is, right? It was Wednesday. We did yoga today. We did some jiu-jitsu. We did some kettlebells, trying to get stronger. You know, but that's and then we talk, whether it's on the mic or we're just talking, whatever. I mean, that's good. I mean, it helps him, helps me. So yeah, man, I encourage everyone, like, if you got issues, maybe there's people that they're not servicemen, maybe but talk to someone about it. We all got our issues. I think that's what people don't want to. I think that's what prevents a lot of people from getting help, is to admit to themselves that they got an issue, and on the belief that they can get over it, that you can rewire your brain, you can get over things. But it takes an effort. So I was like, don't be a pussy. You need a purpose. Like go for it. You need to move your body, and you need to want to do it. If you don't want to, then fuck it. Yeah. Don't. Then just don't. But so what I would like to do, I mean, I wish I had planned it better, since we're down there for jiu-jitsu in the park. But I was thinking, these guys are based in San Diego. I'm going to contact them, see if they could help us put out. We'll do a special yoga lockdown seminar for them, for all the military down there.
Yeah.
Even if we were to do it at the park or something, we'll just have a nice thing. All servicemen and women come down, and I think that'd be pretty cool. And so just let them experience. It's not it'll be what they need. I think that's what's cool about yoga. It's as hard as you need or easy as you need.
For sure. I mean, we're definitely going to make that happen. We're going to go out there and first we're going to blast it and let people know. And then, hopefully we'll get some help and we'll make it happen for sure.
Yeah. All right. Awesome, man. So, I think that's it. But, thank you to Anthony Stewart and William Craig Reed for stopping by my booth that day. That was such a cool way to start it. I haven't read it yet, but Red November was the book he gave me, which is awesome. So I'm going to check that out. Check out Us4Warriors. It sounds like a great foundation. I love how they're giving everything back. They're passionate about it. They're good guys. So it's like, how could you not support that?
How could you not? Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll do what I can to try to help them out.
Thank you guys.
Yeah. We end every episode with Brightside. This week we are on chapter 4. I don't even know what happens in chapter 4, but if you've been listening to other chapters, you will. And if you haven't, you could go to my website. Go to marktullius.com. That's where you can download for free chapters 1, 2, and I'll try to put up 3 today, so that way you guys can catch up. But I think this audiobook is awesome. Love the narration. Check it out. See what you think. Here it is, Brightside, chapter 4.
Chapter 4. I met with Sharon on day 41, holding off as long as possible after the Rachel incident. I didn't want to hear her bullshit or talk about my feelings. Sharon invited me in, asked me to sit. I stared at the steady stream from her Zen waterfall. We didn't speak for at least a minute. Sharon smiling, her back nice and tall, perfect posture. I felt myself slouching, almost to the point I thought I'd slide right off the couch. What would you like to talk about today? Nothing. Nothing? I hated how easily Sharon sifted through my thoughts. I tried not to think about Rachel, Lily, this whole fucked up place. You don't have to say anything, Sharon thought. We can just do this silently if it makes it easier. I backed into the couch. Don't you have to want to share for therapy? Therapy can work in many ways. Just stay out of my head. Sharon smoothed out her white slacks, her short blonde hair plastered down. Sharon had the longest range of anyone in Brightside. She could hear your thoughts from 50 feet on a clear day. I never understood how she stayed so calm. She heard thoughts wherever she went. I guess the meditation helped. She said it did. I heard that soft humming mantra flowing from her skull. Silent therapy made sense. Just cut through all the crap and spill out every thought. Even with the waterfall's soothing sounds and these yellow walls to make us feel comfortable, people never say what's really on their mind. It's how society works. We glance off the truth, avoid conflict. We're trained to keep it pleasant, hold back. Silent therapy allowed Sharon to get past all that, but I didn't want her digging. Not that I could do anything to block her. Where's Rachel? I asked. Safe. Right. Sharon smiled, even as I imagined strangling her. It's perfectly natural to be angry, Joe. Brightside takes getting used to, but we're all on different timelines. But if you're willing to open up, you'll see how wonderful it can be. I pictured Rachel, catatonic, staring at nothing in the cabin. The place rule breakers were sent to drool. Carlos says you're doing well. Your sales are up. Carlos was my boss. He wore American flag pins on his tie. How long do I have to be here? I asked. Not long. Sharon studied me, staring, probing my head. You know, I have a good feeling about you. You're going to be disappointed. I don't know. We'll see. I'd only been forced to see Sharon twice. The first time was the hardest. Day 1 in Brightside. There wasn't a trial after the raid. They held a group of us in a cell for the night. They woke us up by yelling. My right ear was still out from the flashbang, my left muffled with a light ringing. They brought us to the helicopter outside and took us up into the sky. Some thought it was beautiful, the rising sun over the cute mountain town. I never saw it. I kept my eyes shut, too afraid to look down, see the drop. Someone was telling us about Brightside, gave us a quick history. I only heard every 5th word, focused on my clenched fists cuffed behind my back, my pounding heart. Seemed like it had been rising for hours, but it was probably only minutes. My eyelids didn't open until the helicopter landed. I took a breath. The air burned my lungs. So cold, thin. I thought I might pass out. They finally unlocked the cuffs, told us we were going to be processed. Brightside loved paperwork. We had to sign forms stating that we were here voluntarily. They told us we had no choice, that if we didn't sign, our stay would be unpleasant. If we just scratched our names down, things would get a lot easier. I don't remember signing, but I must have, because they took me to Human Resources, helped me land a job. They liked I had a background in sales. People were smiling, nodding. They said this was going to be fun. They loved that word. The ice cream parlor is fun. Karaoke nights are super fun. Summer is the most fun. We have intramural kickball games. Next, I went to Sharon. All of us new residents were sitting in her pleasant waiting room. Know thyself, love thyself, painted in pink flowery sweeps across the yellow wall. I recognized one of the guys, Fook Lee, the world-famous poker player. He'd won every major tournament, collected 11 bracelets, racked up millions. Even had his own late-night poker show on TV. Some called him Lucky Lee. Others used his first name. Turned out he wasn't lucky at all. I realized I'd been in the wrong business. He'd made more money playing poker in a single night than I made in the year at BMW. Fook stared at me from behind his sunglasses and smiled. Everyone else stared at their laps or the floor. I heard one guy thinking about his wife, the bitch who turned him in. Another woman thinking about her kids stuck with their alcoholic father. Brightsiders weren't allowed to keep their kids. There were petitions, but they wouldn't change anything. Normals couldn't stay on the mountain. After some time, we could have visitors. Not that I expected anyone to ever show. Someone mumbled, "Cut that shit out." The guy beside me thought, "Yeah, who brought the retard?" I wondered what I was doing. I checked my feet to make sure I wasn't tapping. Not you. My neighbor nudged his hand to the right, his last 3 fingers purple and swollen. Einstein over there. The guy reading the comic book in the corner looked old enough for college, but his extra tight Donald Duck t-shirt and white name tag with big blocky letters said it was more likely he'd been hijacked from preschool. The tag was scrunched up and falling off, but his bright blue hat with red embroidered letters spelled out Danny for everybody to see. I turned my head so I could hear what was pissing people off. The rustle of paper and the squeak of the comic book's battered cover as Danny rubbed it back and forth in his right hand. Even though I hadn't met many thought thieves before Brightside, I assumed they were all masterminds, or at least intelligent, definitely brighter than me. There were 2 guys between us, but I did my best to block them out and focus on Danny. I listened to him silently sound out each word in his head. It wasn't right to listen in, but I needed an escape from reality. And I'd never heard G.I. Joe in slow motion. There were more booms and blams than I was expecting. But never any death. All that noise, all those bullets. I guess there was no friendly fire. The clack of heels stopped the story. Sharon stood in the doorway, cool and collected in her white pantsuit, hands folded in front of her. She was over 50, but she could have passed for 35. All that age-defying meditation. Sharon retreated into her office, her short, blonde hair sprayed into place. She called me by my first name, like I was a friend, and told me to step inside. She got behind her mahogany desk and waved me over like I was a puppy. Come on. She had me sit, waited for me to speak first. When I wouldn't, she told me about Brightside, how it wasn't so bad, that I just needed to settle in. I later learned that things hadn't always been so cheery. The place had changed. In the beginning, people like us were kept in the cabin or behind steel bars in the basements. Too many took their own lives. Then the politicians and lawyers arrived. Philip, the ex-senator. Grace, the New York DA with her perfect conviction rate. Philip and Grace formed the Brightside Council. They turned things around, got us more funding, lessened the security, even put a stop to the sterilization. Brightsiders could have babies and families. We could live normal lives. Things could be worse, Sharon said. I didn't see how, even after I was shown my new apartment and taken on a tour of the town. We were given free meals for the first 2 days. After that, we had to pay for everything with the money we earned. Outside contact was forbidden the first week. No calls, no letters back home. Once Sharon and the council deemed us safe, we could make contact. Monitored contact. We could also receive gifts. Not that I expected anything. After they dragged me from my place, Michelle thought I was a piece of shit. And my parents... Right. They'd forgotten half of my birthdays as a kid. The only gift I received was from the council. A $100 gift card I could use anywhere in Brightside. Day 7, I bought an iPod to block out all the thoughts. Danny bought comic books and a postcard to send to his sister, Sarah. A bright blue pencil so he could sign his name. Danny stood by the rack, the sharpened pencil clenched in his fist, his thumb sliding down, then up to the eraser. He kept doing it as he stared at the comic books, his thumb going back and forth, his hat down low to hide most of his face. Sarah was there when they took him. Danny had been listening to a store clerk's thoughts. 2 black guys were standing by the rack of CDs. Danny said he'd watch them to make sure they weren't stealing. Sarah told him to be quiet, but the black guys had heard him. Started shoving Danny. The clerk thought about going for his pistol. Danny told him no guns. Suddenly the guys and the clerk were on the same side. Sarah begged for them to just let her and Danny go, but the boots arrived. Danny was cuffed, taken. I felt bad for listening and moved to the sketch pads. I used to sketch when I was a kid, hadn't done it in years, but something about the pad and colored pencils made me want to pick it up. From the end of the aisle, Danny asked if I was a drawer. He sounded like a 6-year-old cowboy with a speech impediment. Thanks to the cowards too scared to knock, my right ear was still useless. I turned my head, and Danny repeated the question. He used his finger to draw on the air because I was the one being slow. I pulled down my sleeves to cover the purple bruises ringing both wrists and said, "I used to." Danny tugged on his hat and walked over real slow, his custom-ordered Dino shoes flashing red. When Danny got to where the average person would stop, I said, "Cool shoes, man." He surprised me and took another step, came in close enough for me to tell 2 of his favorite foods were peanut butter and pickles. Danny didn't say a word about my wrists, just pointed at his feet. "T-Rex is my favorite." I nodded. "Mine too." He backed up a bit to give me some room, but stayed well within my 6-foot range. Like he wasn't so sure he was saying it right, he said, "I'm Danny." His right hand was busy with the pencil, so he stuck out his left with a rolled-up comic book in it. He raised his head and showed me his hazel eyes that were too close together. Having someone look me in the eyes has never been easy, but Dad taught me to watch them when someone's talking. He said if you want to know what people look like when they lie, just look them in the eyes and ask them how they're doing. Dad said the eyes show everything. They show the real you. And that was something I didn't want anyone seeing, especially some stranger. But Danny didn't have the eyes of a stranger. They were the kindest shade of hazel, the softest brown I'd ever seen. There was a whole lot of hurt filling those eyes, but the flecks of gold said he'd be all right. I gave the comic book a shake, like that's how everyone did it. "Nice to meet you, Danny." Danny turned his neck like he was trying to get a kink out, then pointed to the sketch pad and asked, "You a pro?" "No, just for fun." That word fun making me want to puke. Danny picked up the sketch pad and the box of colored pencils. He said, "You need these." I still had money left on the gift card, but I thought I should save it. I followed Danny to the register and told him, "I'm not sure I want to buy them." Danny unzipped his blue fanny pack and paid with his own card. Then he handed over the pad and pencils and said, "Happy new home." "Danny, I can't accept this." "You have to. I want to see you draw." "I haven't done it since I was a kid." "Need practice. Come on." Danny ran out the door, over to a bench, plopped down. Reluctantly, I sat down and opened the pad to the very first page. "What would you like me to draw?" Danny said he didn't know, but I knew he was being shy. I turned and listened for his thoughts. I got nothing. The first time that's ever happened to me. I'd been around people who didn't think much, or were always distracted, caught up in the moment. But this was different. With Danny, there was nothing. Not one thought. Just that smile. Danny's kind eyes got worried. I took out the charcoal pencil, finally heard Danny's thoughts. "You didn't ruin it." I gave him a smile and said, "It's cool. It'll be a surprise." I turned off my mind and looked across the park. Rachel was sitting by a tree. I'd met her at work, but we'd barely spoken, both of us too scared, knowing we were being watched. My pencil got moving. In less than a minute, I had an outline. It was a half day. Mom, another no-show. But this time I was 6, old enough to use the under-the-key mat. I hoped I'd have the house to myself, even though that meant Mom would be at someone else's. But she was home, laughing so loud she didn't hear me open the back door. I walked past the dryer's low rumble, my Ghostbusters backpack in one hand, my drawing in the other. I heard a man's voice, the aerobics instructor, the one with the big dick. My kid's a regular Picasso. Look at all the crap I've got on my fridge. Mom laughed. I crumpled up the drawing and ran up to my room. She came in later, heard me crying. She wished I wasn't such a whiny brat. She tried to console me and make me feel better, but her thoughts told the truth and made everything so much worse. Danny couldn't stay still, kept shifting, tapping his legs like a drum, thumbing the paint off his pencil. I made him my helper and asked him for colors. But he didn't know them all by name. I pointed. He figured it out. By the time I was done with my drawing, I was ready to crumple it up like I did with my mom. Anyone who saw it would know I was no artist. I'd never been good with faces. But I'd sort of captured Rachel's insecurity. The way she adjusted, sucked in her belly so it wouldn't spill over her skirt. Danny asked if I was done. I tore it out and handed it to him. He said it was perfect, and I said it was nothing. Danny held up the picture, his eyes all shiny. It's everything. He jumped up to his feet and ran over to Rachel, handed it to her. He pointed back to me and she smiled. I felt guilty and left, wandered out into the forest, and carved Michelle's name in that pine tree. They hadn't told us we could venture into the woods, but I didn't care. I just kept walking until I found that tree, pulled out my apartment keys and dug into the bark. For a second I thought the key might break, but I just kept carving, digging, needing to see her name, pretend I could make things right. If only I'd told her the truth. If only I hadn't been so greedy about the house, been smarter like Dad had told me to be, then maybe I wouldn't have ended up here, trapped on this fucking mountain. Fucking Saul. I knew he was suspicious at BMW, knew he was thinking about turning me in, but I pressed, thought I had a few days. When Michelle's name was finally carved, I fell against the tree and wept. I can't remember ever crying like that as an adult. My mind falling into the past. I thought about getting lost in the snow as a kid and that nice woman hugging me, taking me home. The home I'd never see again. The sun began to set, and the temperature dropped. The tears warmed trails down my cheeks. I finally got up, walked back toward the apartment. That's when I heard the car. It rounded the curve way up the mountain. It was dark blue, definitely a Chrysler. The same kind Michelle drove. I started running. She'd come to save me. The car was half a block away. I still couldn't see the driver, but I knew it was Michelle. I wasn't a piece of shit. She'd forgiven me. Probably knew about my ability all along. I ran into the middle of the street, waving my arms like an idiot. Michelle! 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 The car was going fast and headed right for me. I closed my eyes. Thought it couldn't stop. The screech of brakes louder than anything I've ever heard. I opened my eyes, the car only a foot from me, its front door thrown open. It was the quickest I've ever gone from one feeling to another. First thinking I was free, saved, still loved. Then straight to scared shitless, because the driver was out of the car running right at me, screaming for me to get down, his big fucking pistol pointed right in my face. It happened so quick I just saw flashes. Blue jeans, black windbreaker, angry brown eyes. And then he was on me, kicking my legs out, pushing my head, slamming me to the ground. His black boot went on my cheek like he was squashing a bug. He shouted, "Stay the fuck down!" I yelled like a little girl, "Get off me!" Then I grabbed at his boot and pushed it to prove I wasn't. The boot went away, but metal came back. Hard. The barrel of the gun pushed at my temple, dug into the bone like it didn't need a bullet. I could barely open my jaw. It sounded all screwed up when I said, "What'd I do?" "You want to die?" I didn't try to talk. I laid still, focused on the cold gravel digging into my cheek, not the gun twitching, pressing like all this guy wanted to do was pull the trigger and splatter my brain across the street. He put more pressure on the gun, his breath straight caffeine. You think it'd matter if I killed you? 2 footsteps approached. Cowboy boots. And then Melvin, Brightside sheriff, asked, Everything okay? I wanted to say no. It wasn't all right. But the gun was still there, pointing me down. Black Boots said, Yeah, it's fine. Go back inside where it's warm. Melvin said, I'm okay. Reminds me of home. I was just finishing up with this guy. The prick tapped the side of my head, letting me know where he wanted to put the bullet. I think he's learned his lesson, Sheriff Melvin said. Black Boots pulled the gun off me and kicked my leg when he walked back to his car. You get up before I'm gone and you'll be sorry. The Boots called themselves agents, but I never would. Even the term cop was too good for them. Face down on the ground, though, I'd never been so still. My eyes on the American flag rippling back and forth. Melvin chuckled. When I didn't look at him, he said, You know what I'm thinking right now? I just turned my face because I figured he wouldn't leave until I did. He stood there, a huge smile hanging underneath the darkest pair of sunglasses. I was thinking about what that guy asked you. I was thinking no one would care. I got to my feet and stepped to the side. The Chrysler zipped by, and for a split second I was staring into the eyes of the man who could have ended me. I wished he had. Melvin asked, You okay? I waited until the car made its way around the circle and disappeared down Main Street. Yeah, I'm all right. Melvin put his hand to my shoulder and guided me to the curb. He had this bushy white mustache which made him look like the guy from the Quaker Oats commercials on a bender. Have a seat a second. I felt like I'd just been kicked in the balls, the body, the face, but I deserved it. I was the idiot who ran in front of a car. The idiot that thought Michelle would ever want to see me again. Even if she lived in the next city over, she wouldn't come. Not unless it was to demand an apology or watch me suffer. Melvin used the side of his cowboy boot to sweep the bloody gravel at my feet. You sure you're okay? He pointed at the cabin. We can go in there. I didn't know much about the cabin at the time, but I knew enough to stay away. I wiped off my hands, pretended like I didn't want to cry. I didn't have to ask Melvin to leave me alone or tell him I couldn't talk. All I did was look up and read the banner rippling above the square, the big red letters on both sides. Welcome to Brightside. Welcome home.